Today we're going to break down a story that starts out as a simple investigation and then completely spirals into this nightmare that makes you question everything you know about memory and fear. So, let's get into our explainer for Whispers in the Dark.
Right off the bat, this one line is basically the entire engine for the story. And it's not just some spooky, poetic threat, okay? It's a fundamental rule of nature for the horror we're about to uncover. This isn't about some ghost who just wants to be remembered. No, this is about a memory that is actively, hungrily consuming things.
And that's our way in. We're following this investigative journalist, Maya Bell, as she shows up in this super remote village called Black Hollow. She thinks she's just chasing a story about her mother's past, but what she finds instead is a whole town that's just buried under a silence that is anything but peaceful.
So, first up, a village buried in silence. The investigation really kicks off with the setting itself because, in this story, the place is just as much of a monster as any creature you could imagine lurking out there in the woods. You see, Black Hollow isn't just a dot on a map. It's an active character in this whole horror show. The fog is there to hide things. The forest literally listens. And the silence itself feels like a weapon. The entire environment just seems perfectly designed to keep the truth down.
So this is what Maya walks into. It's not just an unwelcoming town. It feels like the town is actively fighting against your being there. Every little detail, the weird metallic smell in the air, that quiet that's so heavy it almost hurts your ears. It's all one big warning sign screaming, "You should not be here."
And this is pretty much the first piece of real advice Maya gets. And man, does it set the stakes. In a place like Black Hollow, being scared isn't a weakness. It's your only survival tool. It's this constant alarm bell telling you the dangers are very, very real. And the second you let your guard down is the second you're dead. Okay, part 2. The Whispers in the Dark. Because Maya realizes very, very quickly, this isn't just about a bunch of secretive locals. Nope, the actual rules of reality are starting to get a little bendy.
It all starts pretty subtly, just these faint voices she can hear on the wind. They're so quiet she almost convinces herself she's imagining them. But they're there, little broken warnings, right on the edge of her hearing, just planting that first little seed of supernatural dread.
So, the haunting escalates. It goes from sound to sight. Now she's seeing these flickering shapes in her peripheral vision. You know, those patches of shadow that look a little too dark, that seem to move when you're not looking right at them? That feeling of being watched becomes constant. It's oppressive. And then, bam, the first solid thing she sees. Deep in the woods, Maya spots a small, barefoot girl. I mean, it's a classic ghost image, right? But her showing up isn't the big scare. It's actually the start of a much, much deeper mystery. The village priest, Father Bren, lays it out for her. She's not the danger. She's the warning. The ghost girl isn't the monster. She's more like an alarm bell, a symptom of the real sickness that's been festering underneath this town for years. And she's trying to point Maya straight towards the source.
Which brings us to part 3, a secret in the soil. This is where the story peels back its first really big layer, and we shift from the haunting that's happening now to the historical trauma that kicked this whole thing off in the first place.
So here's the origin story of the curse. Decades ago, this girl Elswith was changed by, well, something in the forest. The villagers, totally terrified of what she'd become, sealed up the source of it and just buried the truth. They didn't solve the problem, you see. They just put a lid on it. And now, the past is clawing its way back to the surface.
So now we're at part 4, the Hollow's true nature. We know the history, so now the story can finally reveal what has really been haunting Black Hollow all this time. And this is where things get intensely personal for Maya.
Maya realizes she is not dealing with a simple ghost. This is a parasitic entity. It doesn't just haunt a place, it infects it. It doesn't want revenge. It wants to feed on the very things that make us human, our fears, our memories. And it needs a living host to act as a kind of gateway into our world.
And then comes the big twist. The bombshell drops. Maya discovers she's not some random outsider. Her investigation was never a coincidence. She was being called home.
That's right. The Hollow's blood runs through her veins. Turns out, Maya's mother was from Black Hollow. This ancestral connection, this bloodline, is exactly why the entity has been calling to her, why she can hear the whispers so clearly. She is a potential gate,
and her arrival was the homecoming it had been waiting for all along.
And that brings us to the final part, the price of truth. This is the climax. But you can't just punch an ancient, memory-eating evil in the face. Confronting this thing isn't about winning a fight. It's about paying a price, and it is a steep one.
The final confrontation is this ritual, a ritual of pure sacrifice. First, Maya offers her own bloodline to act as an anchor. Then, the spirit of the first victim, Elswith, shows up as a witness. Then, Maya uses her own notebook, basically a collection of all her fears and memories, as bait. And finally, she doesn't destroy the entity. She binds it to herself, turning her own body into its new prison.
And this is the truly tragic outcome. Her goal was to destroy the evil, to save the village, to escape. The reality? To save Black Hollow, she had to contain the evil inside herself, becoming its warden. She doesn't escape the darkness, she becomes the darkness.
Her final words in the ritual are just devastatingly powerful. I bury you in the hollow of what I was. That's not just a spell, that's a eulogy for her former self. She saves the entire town by completely sacrificing her own humanity. And that's the final, chilling question the story leaves us with. Sure, the evil was contained, but what happens when a memory decides it wants to be free? Maya became the prison, the warden, but, prisons can be broken. The story ends not with a neat little bow, but with this terrifying possibility that this is all just a pause, because some memories don't fade, they just wait.